I can tell my success story building this company in 60 seconds, but telling everything else that happened during and growing and all that is probably going to take 3 months.
Was there something that kind of caused that shift in perspective for you?
There was a moment for me like, okay, there is something stronger that works in the background that I'm not aware of.
Today's guest is Idan Shpizear, the founder of 911 Restoration, a company that grew from a single van to a nationwide brand. After immigrating to the US with just $2,000, Idan's journey is built on grit, hard work, and an unwavering belief in personal transformation.
What was the experience for you kind of going from single van startup mode to scaling that business?
We went from $250 to over $3 million pretty fast. But I noticed that if I'm not staying on top of things, I can grow the company really fast, but I'm not really making any profit.
So I'm curious if you kind of looked at your leadership style before and after. What was the biggest shift?
Before you're trying to understand the world outside of you, understand the world inside of me. The moment that you recognize who you really are outside of the noise, there's no difference between me and you. It's just a different story.
So I would love to know a lesson that you learned the hard way that you wouldn't trade for anything.
So
Hello, everybody. My name is Jenna Bayuk of the Kinship Collective and host for the Built for This podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by a man who's built a story on courage, grit, and an unwavering belief in possibility. Idan immigrated to the United States with a little more than ambition and a deep desire to build something meaningful. From those humble beginnings, he founded 911 Restoration, a business that grew from a single van into a nationwide brand. But Idan's journey didn't stop with business success. At a pivotal crossroads, he turned inward and embarked on a spiritual awakening that reshaped how he leads, lives, and loves. And this episode is all about reinvention from the inside out. So we are going to dive in. Welcome.
awesome. Thank you. Excited to be here with you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So like with each guest, I really love to kind of understand a little bit more about where we all started and would love to hear kind of about your story, sort of growing up in Israel and sort of the values and kind of influence that sort of, whether you're aware of it or not, kind of was the foundational piece for where you're at today.
As you hear my accent, I'm originally from Israel. I grew up in a small farm in the south part of Israel. There's a lot of people know kibbutz, so that's a little bit different. It's called a mushav, and we had about 49 families. And each house, behind the house, we had about 5 acres of land where we grew tomatoes, cucumbers, flowers, different things based on different seasons and on and on. Yeah, most of my childhood barefoot in the back, working, really had a lot of freedom. Yeah, especially when you compare it to the way kids are growing here today. You know, there's parents, we're looking over the kids all the time. You always know where the kids are. Where I grew up, it's usually barefoot. I leave in the morning and I come back sometime in the evening. Yeah, it was great. I really learned hard work, right? Come back from school, going back to the field, working with my parents, vacation. I mean, when everybody were off school, I was most of the time working with my parents in the fields. So I learned really what it means to put some hard work. But also as a farmer, and I get to appreciate it more today, you really see the entire process of putting the seeds, watering the plants, feeding the plants, seeing everything from beginning to the point that you collect the fruits and then you sell them in the market. So there's a lot of patience, there's a lot of love, there's a lot of processes, but there's also points that you can work for 3-4 months and then a storm comes in, or the weather change really overnight, and then everything that you worked for can basically disappear. Right. And then a week after, you need to pull everything out and just go for it again in a way. So, yeah.
You mentioned 2 things that popped up right away. One was the idea of being able to be barefoot playing and like in a farm and fields. And so many of my friends now too, especially living in a city life, a backyard at this point is a luxury for most people because they're in an apartment or a townhouse because cost of living so high. And then, having the freedom to be able to run around and kind of do whatever until you're tired out and come back home. So I think that sounds like a very beautiful way to kind of have, your early childhood memories. And I'm curious, with the farming culture and the mentality of that, did you kind of already sort of early on see your parents kind of running their own business in a way, and that was something that definitely, regardless of if you knew what you were going to do yet, was something that you wanted to do?
Because I saw also experienced a lot of pain in them running their business. So my parents were really good. My dad was really good growing vegetables and fruit and on, but the business side was not that good. And also the situation and where we lived and everything. So overall on the business side, I experienced more pain. I didn't look at it. I can explain it today looking backward, but when I went through it, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to find something steady. Maybe I need to find a job. Hopefully one day I can buy a house and pay it in full. So I don't go through the crazy up and downs and the painful moments. But I did recognize the independency, right? I did recognize wait a second, I can wake up in the morning and I can get out there and I can make things happen, right? So I can pick the vegetables, I can put things together, I can take it to the market, right? So I think there is empowering part of that is very strong in me. Okay, if I need to get up in the morning and 5 a.m. and this is what I need to do, I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah, that work ethic instilled. And so I'm curious, what sparked the interest to move to the US, and then kind of get into sort of what that was like once you made the move to going there and how you were welcomed.
So school was not an option for me. I hate school. I didn't even finish school. So going to college, university was not even on the table for me. Finished the service in the army, worked as a bellboy and as a gardener. We just heard that, America is land of opportunities. There's money grows on the trees. Every house comes with a pool. You can land, you can buy a house. This is where opportunities can be built. We can actually make something happen. So I saved about $1,000, me and a good friend, and we just came here, not really speaking the language, not really knowing anybody. We just said, let's just do it. And that's why we came here.
That's awesome. I can already see some traits like popping up. I'm like, that's a bold move to kind of go with. I always, that it's not that it's quite a delusion to think that like you're just going to like land and everything's going to magically appear, but a little bit of that kind of ignorance is bliss, and I'm going to land here and everything's going to work out.
I think many things work very well for me, but many things were painful. But to have this a little bit of an attitude of, it sounds good. I know enough, but I don't overthink it, but I'm just going to go for it, right? And that's what kind of the same experience coming here. I'm like, okay, it sounds good. Let's go. We have $1,000. So together we have $2,000. Yeah. We watch enough movies so we can speak a little bit English, but we'll manage. Let's just do it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. And so when you stepped off the plane into the US, what was that experience like? I always joke that one of the podcasts that like the Kelsey brothers on to like, what was your welcome to the NFL moment? I'll say, what was your welcome to the US moment?
So first is like, wow, everything is in English. How the hell we get out of the airport? Seriously. Like it felt. Now, I grew up in a farm most of my life, so going even to the Tel Aviv, the main city in Israel, was overwhelming. But coming to LA and the big airport, like, wow, okay, this is really big, and everything is in English. Let's try to figure out how we're getting out of here. And then from the airport, we got to Santa Monica, really sitting there in a restaurant with our suitcase, and what's next? Seriously, like, overwhelmed and excited. And we thought that we're going to figure out we understand how much, our English was terrible. We thought that it's going to be easier, but as soon as we got here and we need to interact with people, now we're like, okay, how the hell are we going to do it? Like, this is not easy as we thought it's going to be. But luckily, things just worked out. Even when we're sitting in Santa Monica and me and my friend was speaking in Hebrew, and then there was 2 tables next to us there was two Israeli girls, and they heard us speaking, and we heard them. So we start chatting, and they said, you know what? We have an extra bedroom in our two-bedroom apartment, and the other person just left. If you guys want, you can come and stay with us for 3-4 nights. Like, okay, here we go. So something's working for us now.
Yeah, no kidding. The odds of that happening are so, I think now that like random people being like, hey, just come stay in that room would be like next to none, I feel like. So I love that that was what happened based on somebody overhearing you speak Hebrew in a restaurant in Santa Monica of all places, which is a really, really cool moment. So in California, you're figuring out that you're going to have to learn how to speak English pretty quickly or and develop that language to be able to kind of get a job or sort of kind of build some sort of foundation. What did it look like? Was it always you and your friend wanted to build a business together, or was it just let's get whatever first job we can and figure it out from there?
We just knew that we have enough money for probably a month, so we have to find a job. Yeah, we didn't have anything else to fall on.
Yeah.
Right. So we just like, okay, we need to find a job as fast as we can. And we knew that there's a big community here in the San Fernando Valley. So even though we're in Santa Monica in a beautiful, beautiful place, we're like, okay, we need to get to San Fernando Valley because we heard there's a big community there and we need to find a way to get a job. So we came here. We bought a Volvo 1978 for $800. So now we have $1,200. We found an apartment here to rent in Reseda. I think it was about $600 a month. And we shared that with 3 other guys, or 5 guys in 1-bedroom apartment. So we're okay with money now, right? So we bought the thing. We have about $100 in rent. And somebody was nice enough, somebody that owned a carpet cleaning company was nice enough to give us an opportunity. So we went, we spoke with them. He says, you know what? You guys look like you're great guys. You guys need to learn how to speak English much, much faster because you now need to go and clean carpet and communicate with people. So he gave us like 3 days of training. Here is the carpet cleaning machine. Here's the formulas that you guys need to use. We somehow were able to put the carpet cleaning machine in the backseat of the Volvo. And by the 3rd day, we're already driving out and cleaning carpet. Yeah, we just had to make it happen.
And how did you develop English? I know for some of my friends, they watch soap operas nonstop and that's how they learned it. And I always laughed. I was like, you know what? As somebody who obviously English is their first language, I'm like, I think even watching like a telenovela, I'm like, there's no way that me listening to like Spanish enough, I would be fluent enough to like listen to enough to walk in and speak Spanish. So I'm always amazed by how quickly people are able to pick it up and then learning from TV shows. But I'm curious sort of what your journey was on that front.
So first of all, when you immerse yourself in a different country, when everybody speaks English around you, it's much faster because you don't really have a choice. I have to try to say things. The other thing is when we drive down the street, we said we have to read every sign and we're going to read it aloud together and we're going to figure out how to say it. And then in the 3 days training with the carpet cleaning, we says, okay, what's the words that we have to know? Right? So we start kind of picking up main keywords. And in the first few jobs, it was a lot of, you using our hands, using some keywords. And it was hilarious. But yeah, we managed, because when you come in and I think you really have a good attitude and you really want to serve, people will be nice. People are nice, right? When they see like, okay, 2 young guys came here from different countries. They really want to do a good job. We using some keywords. We use our hands to communicate. So it worked out. So yeah, in the first 3 months, we picked up a lot of keywords. Like we knew how to speak about carpet cleaning. Really good. But anything outside of carpet cleaning was very hard.
Yeah, that's fair. Kind of have your initial subject matter expertise. So we're like, in this window, we're really strong right now.
Yeah, that was funny.
That's awesome. So how did it go from getting your first job and carpet cleaning to deciding that you, one, wanted to start your own business? And then, I mean, not surprising because you got like the risk taking and curiosity to be like, okay,
yeah,
I want to actually start a business now.
So even in the carpet cleaning, we were pretty independent, right? So it's commission only. Now, what happened with the carpet cleaning, because we were 5 guys, 1-bedroom apartment, we didn't really have any furniture or anything. We basically slept on the carpet. So every morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, we were uncomfortable. We're getting up in the car to the city. And we're just waiting there for the first job. And then most of the other technicians that had families and everything else at 5, 6 o'clock went back home. So we had nothing to rush back to. So we just stayed in the city. So pretty fast, the carpet cleaning manager said, you know what? I know that I can always count on Idan. He's always out there in the field. He's waiting for his next job. So the first job that came to us. Anything that came up in the evening, we took it. So we start seeing like, okay, there's a flow of job. We start seeing the culture. We start having a better understanding of how the business work here. So that gave us more confidence. Now, probably 7, 8 months in, this is where we got our first call for a flooded house. Now, when we got a call, we knew nothing about the restoration industry, nothing about blowers, dehumidifiers. We didn't even think about this industry. For us, it was, we'll go out there and we extract the water, and that's it, where we're done. So we went out there, we charged $600 to extract the water. For us, it was a lot of money. We even celebrate that night eating Chinese food. It was like a big deal for us, seriously.
I love that. That would be my dad's celebratory dinner as well, Chinese food for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. But the other thing that I noticed is even in our first job, in the first call that we got. So as we extracting the water, we're almost done. Then another company came in and they brought blowers and dehumidifiers and start moving all the furnitures and pulling the drywall and all that. And I'm standing there like, wow, okay, there's a much bigger project that is being done here that I didn't know anything about. And then we discovered that they charge about $15,000. So like, okay, that's interesting. I'm already here.
That's a bit better than 500 or 600 bucks. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that I noticed is that they didn't really care that much about the client, right? So I'm standing there with a client and they're coming in and they bring equipment and there's a big mess going on, and they're getting the client to sign this long agreement. And I see the clients like have a lot of unknown, like who's going to pay for it, what the insurance company going to say, how it's going to work, and on and on. I'm like, wow, okay. They don't really care about him. There's a bigger project here. Interesting, right? That's where my curiosity starts to like, okay, I need to figure out this side of the business.
Yeah.
And then about 2-3 weeks after, we got a second call. Exactly the same thing. And we saw exactly the same behavior. I'm like, okay, there's something very interesting here. I want to go into this business because we're getting the calls anyway. So basically, I'm extracting the water. I can set up the equipment. I can do all that, right? So I start researching and learning about that, the water damage restoration and the mold and all that. Spending more hours just learning about it. And every extra dollar we had, we start buying our own equipment. So we bought the first 5 blowers and then 10 blowers and 20 blowers and dehumidifiers. And at one point, we had a van that now ready to go with all the equipment we need to do the entire project. Now, the next call we got, we just did everything beginning to end. But what I did is I paid attention to the homeowner. So for me was, I'm going to walk in and I'm first going to pay attention to the homeowner. The damage to the property is secondary. I'm going to try to approach it this way. And I noticed that the entire experience is changing. And at that moment, I'm like, okay, I want to be in this business and I want to do it this way. I want to approach that business more from the standpoint of human to human first, right? So that was the moment for me that I want to do this business. And then a few weeks after, or a month after, I got another call. It was over the weekend, not far from where I live. We get into the house and I'm standing outside and I'm hearing like the husband and wife are yelling at each other. It sounds like a battlefield inside. It's crazy. I'm like, okay, just take a deep breath. Just walk in. Your job is human to human. Let's try to get everybody to calm down. I'm walking in and then we're able to really, my goal was, can I help them see the positive in the negative? Can I really listen to them so the people feel like they're being heard? That I'm not just there to create a bigger mess. I want to help them to really see that it's okay. Like we're going to work through it, right? So we did the entire project. Everything worked out, ended up great. And then about a week after, I'm getting a phone call from the homeowner. And he's like, hey, Idan, how are you? What's going on? I'm like, I'm great. How can I help you? He's like, listen, Idan, I'm having really a hard day. And, when you came over, when we went through everything, you just brought us down to earth. So I just want to hear your voice. At that moment, I'm like, okay, we are really onto something here. Wow, I can really have this impact on people. From having them go through a terrible experience, couple are fighting, the kids are experiencing this fighting between the parents, the unknowingness, like what's going to happen, how are we going to deal with that, who is going to pay for it. I can shift it into, we have a great company that we're working with, we're going to get a new carpet, we're going to get a new paint, it's going to work out. I have clarity, I understand how things are going to work out. We can really have this impact on people. That was the moment for me that, okay, I'm going to go into this business, I'm going to build my company, and I'm going to do it this way. My goal is to bring that to people's life. And that's really where the idea of the fresh start came in, and the culture and everything else that we kind of still alive in the company. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what was the experience like for you, kind of going from, we'll call it single van, startup mode, to scaling that business? And especially I'm curious if there was any tools or people you connected with to really understand how to do that, kind of coming in with, as you said, school is not your thing. You're not coming with like, okay, I'm coming out with an MBA. I've done my internships. I know how relatively what platforms or tech I could use to help outside of the people dynamic. So how did you approach now growing that business?
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was crazy because when we kind of became independent, we averaged about $250K in sales a year. A lot of it was, business development, just going out there and meeting people slowly. It's very slow growth, especially because I didn't fully understand how to put the brand and the marketing together. A few weeks after we became independent, I'm sitting in the restaurants, again, curiosity, and I'm hearing two people speaking about advertising online. Now, this was 2003. I'm like, advertising online? Okay, I really need to hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right? When saying how you can put your ad on Google and people can find it and da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, I need to go home right now. I need to figure out what this guy just talked about. Right? So I went back home and I'm like everything about Google and advertise and da-da-da-da-da. I spent about 6 hours. A day after, I realized how to put my first ad online. Now, I didn't have a website. So instead of having a website underneath the ad, I just put my phone number. 24 hours, I got my first phone call. And then almost every day, I generate a lead. So we went from 250 to over $3 million pretty fast. Now, going back to your question, how did we know how to organize and scale all that? We had no idea. We just learned it. We were just running, chicken with no heads. I'm doing the inspection and the phone calls and trying to hire, and how do I meet with my team and how do I keep people accountable? And we grew really fast. But then as we're growing, I understand that in the back of my mind, I knew there's a better way of doing it. And because everybody's running around, and what I noticed that if I'm not staying on top of things, I can grow the company really fast, but I'm not really making any profit, right? So sometimes saying, okay, hold on, when I was 700,000, I make great profit. 1.5, it's not really there. 3 million, I'm almost losing money. What's going on here, right? So slowly, kind of on, the team and everybody around me, we got into, okay, so maybe it's time to start building job descriptions. Maybe we need to start looking at metrics in a different way. Yeah. Maybe running the business cannot just be done based on how much money we have in the bank account, right? And then I start stepping back a little bit and saying, okay, I know that we're running around now and everybody's trying to do their best, but let me try to look at the business more of a system. Okay, so I see leads are coming in. Then what's happened with the leads? Then the office will take the leads, convert it now to a job. Are people going out? Can I now start slicing everything, right? And see it more of a system that I'm putting $1 in and how much is coming out, right? So but it happened as we went, right? It wasn't something that I knew before. One of the things that I recognized, but that was more kind of towards after reaching a certain growth, is like, okay, I need to find people that are much smarter than me, that already did it before, and I just need to figure out how to find these people. And I start reaching out to people. And I thought it's going to be very hard, but I discovered there's great people out there that already build great companies, and they're happy to help. Right. So I had people coming in. I mean, I had one consultant, a great guy, and he's like, Idan, show me your job description. And I'm like, okay, again with the job description. I already created it. I have something very, very simple, like enough. I really need to figure out that. He's like, Idan, no, job descriptions. Okay. I showed him my job description, and he's like, no, this is not how you're doing it. And in my mind, it's like, listen, I said it already 5 times, so people know what they're supposed to do. And he's like, nope. Let's call your people in and let's ask them one by one, and let's see the level of the really are to spend, how they help the business grow, what the metrics that they're being measured on, and on and on. So that was one part. And then I brought another consultant that helped me with accounting. And at one point, it was very important to me to have at least 3 people that I call them kind of my advisory board.
Yeah.
And I brought somebody that is great in operations, somebody is great in sales, somebody that understands franchise, and kind of that. So I always had that around me. As part of the spiritual growth that we talked about, right? The awareness is, I understand that I come with a lot of limitation that I'm not even aware of. And I start really looking at strengths and weaknesses. And I notice also when you do good in business, especially in the company, people will like, wow, you're great. Wow, you're amazing. Because we're paying everybody. Right? Yay, Dan, that's amazing. That's that. Says, okay, I need to put people around me that show me what I do not see. So I want people to tell me, Dan, listen, you're being stupid right now. Dan, you are not seeing it right now. I had one of my advisor that we end up being great friend, amazing person. He used to scream at me, you are not seeing it. What are you doing that? But he did it with love, and he want me to be successful, and I appreciate it. So one of the things that I'm telling now some of the advisors, like, listen, if you're not telling me what I'm not seeing, I don't need another person to tell me how great I am. It's not about my ego or me feeling great. Don't really care about it. We have a lot of people in the organization, and we have to make sure that the organization is helping everybody grow. So let's really look at things in objective place so we support everybody.
Well, and I want to stop you there because you said a couple of things that are really important. And the job description one, I could like hysterically laugh about because I do that so often with clients where like everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. Like, and we start to dig that in, and there's just this massive gap. And I'm like, you can think you have the best team or they're all doing things. And then when you start to kind of define and then put some expectations on that role, very interesting what you start to see happen from is this the right person? Or do we need to change roles for them, or what's broken in that structure? And coming from a fractional led support perspective and or advisory with entrepreneurs, it can be very tough. A lot of them, again, as you mentioned, ego, want to be praised for everything that they're doing. And especially when you have a growing profitable company, depending on that personality, they're not always really wanting to hear what's not working because there's a lot of things that quote unquote aren't working. And I think being able to have that feedback and being able to be willing to hear this is not working or you're doing this wrong, and then actually wanting to take action on that's really important. One of my clients, and I'll never forget because I laughed, he's like, you know what, Jenna, I can't stand you right now. Like, you drive me insane. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, you're welcome. And then I'm like, but I'm curious, why do I drive you insane? He's like, because you tell me the things I absolutely don't want to hear. And it's so frustrating because I know you're right, but I really just don't want to hear it right now. And I also respect you and love you so much because I know you want the absolute best for me and you're trying to save me from myself. And I'm like, best compliment ever. Like, you can call me a pain in the ass all you want. But it's really important. So it's nice to hear that was already kind of somewhat like top of mind for you in your journey versus everything blew up. And then I was open to hear to what I was doing wrong. So yeah, that's really great. And then I'm curious, when for the spiritual kind of component, as you're, realizing like, hey, I'm human, I'm not perfect, I have flaws regardless of some things I'm really, really strong at. Was there something that kind of caused that shift in perspective for you, or like a practice you started doing that allowed you to be a bit more self-aware and present in what was happening?
I got hit in the face really hard, and that's really what pushed me to thing, right? So I'm saying I can tell what the world's seeing as my success story building this company in 60 seconds, right? But telling everything else that happened during and growing and all that is probably going to take 3 months, right, to go through these stories. So at one moment, as I grew my company and I got into a lot of other opportunities, and I noticed that there is a patterns that I cannot break through. It's why the moment that I'm okay, I'm making good amount of money compared to what I used to, right? But every time that I'm trying to break through it, I'm keep getting back to the same place. And it doesn't matter if I have one business or 5 businesses, if I'm working 20 hours or 100 hours, like there is something, right? And there was a moment for me like, okay, there is something stronger that work in the background that I'm not aware of. Because it's not only what I do. So it's not that I try to win this thing by working harder and keep hitting my head against the wall. And it's not really working for me. I'm just exhausted, and I'm keep getting back to the same place. And I try that and I try here. And that says, you know what? Let me try to figure out what is this thing that works in the background. And then I heard the sentence that said, before you're trying to understand the world outside of you, understand the world inside of me, right? Now, before that, I didn't really think about spirituality. I always had a certain intuition or insight, but I never really thought about from that place that there's more and there's other, the unconscious and the conscious. I never really got to that.
Yeah.
But that moment, I understand there is something else that works. And then I heard that sentence and I said, what do you mean the world inside of me? This is the world, is whatever I see in front of me. That's what the world is.
Right.
That's really when I start turning inward. And I said, okay, let's assume there is a world inside of me. What it means even? How do I even get to experience the world inside of me? And then I started reading about it and got into the unconscious and conscious and start really paying it more attention. This is where I start developing really more awareness. And I start recognizing my patterns. And I start recognizing that to some degree, I'm reliving my parents' patterns. So they made some money, they lost money, made some money, lost money, kind of the same thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing better, but I'm still in a way tracking the same patterns. And so I start developing this self-awareness, and it become the most important thing for me. Because I understand that this is really the engine. And the outside is a reflection of my engine, of my patterns. And after I start really putting work into understanding my inner being, I notice that once I'm being aware of a pattern, and I sit with it for enough time, and I let it process through me, my external reality shift. I said, okay, so wait a second. So the hard work is external or the hard work is internal? Because if I can shift things with much less effort, but just more awareness, maybe this is what I need to put a lot of my efforts in. So I'm still doing it. I mean, it's built in because I've been doing it for so long, but I'm really seeing the biggest shift in my life and other people that I work with or support to some degrees whenever they release something internal.
Yeah.
External shift. And the recognition of your own patterns will help you also recognize the external patterns. Like why companies go through a certain things, why people behave in a certain way. You can also recognize when you work with another person that he's stuck in his own pattern. And you can talk to him all day long, but if he's not ready to hear or pay attention, it's So it's going to keep playing the same thing.
Yeah, that reminds me of a book that I read that's great called Power versus Force. By David Hawkins. He has a great, and then like a couple other books like Transcending Consciousness and all those, but it is very much that. And I think once you start to tap in and tune in, it's so interesting. And I always call it like the vibrational frequencies in which people operate on. And when you start to elevate that frequency, you really start to understand, where I call it like the energy givers and the energy suckers. And you understand why it's pulling everything from you if you were to want to drop back down to a level versus stay where you're at. And obviously you can invite people up to meet you, but as you go, I'm like, I won't drop down to operate at that level. So they have to figure that out. And I have definitely had a fixer mentality before, and in work it serves me very well. And I let it go in my personal life. I'm like, no more fixer uppers. Like, we got this. As you start to really dig in from that, it is pretty magical sort of how the universe kind of unfolds. And again, as you mentioned, how your reality completely shifts.
Yeah.
How you look at things, how you interact with people, who you won't interact with. And I think a big piece, and I'm curious if it was the same for you, was not trying to overwhelm myself with being so productive and doing work where you're like getting a little bit of that adrenaline high. I'm like, I'm so good. I'm doing all these things. And then actually intentionally not doing anything and kind of having to sit in that discomfort of feeling like you're almost being lazy in a way, but you're really like thinking and creating that space of awareness, but also like, what am I doing right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And was there any kind of practices or moments where you're like, okay, I actually now have to really shift the way I operate in the business, both in it and outside of it?
It's not even that I had a decision that I have to shift the way I, operate in the business. It just naturally happened because the level of awareness just opened up, right? So I'm aware, right, that we process close to, 70,000 thoughts every day. 99% of the thoughts are the thoughts of yesterday. So basically, I'm not even seeing the reality in front of me. What I'm seeing is my thoughts about what is in front of me.
Yeah.
So recognizing it is saying, okay, I'm lost in a movie. It's not necessarily who I am. I'm just giving it all of my power. So I'm just going to step out of it. And I'm not going to try to control it or change it. I'm just going to step out of it. And once you step out of it, first of all, you create room for new thoughts. You create room for new understanding, right? So once it's become very clear to me, is just, okay, so I'm aware. There's a part of me that will come up with a story that I'm not doing enough. And there's a part of me that will come with that story or this story. You need to get up. You need to do this. You need to do this. And I can stay with awareness in it. But I also understand that I don't want to be lost in this constant movie, right? So sitting down and doing nothing, sometimes it's actually doing a lot more than the actual doing when you're lost in the movie, because you're basically repeating your behaviors again and again, right? So that is a big recognition. And also the recognition of, when we understand the way our brain works and how many thoughts we have all the day and the way our brain is connected and process information, we're basically, the goal that we're creating is based on our past all the time, right? And I don't want to create things in the future just because of a certain past that I experienced. Right? So the recognition of it and sitting outside of it now give me the opportunity to explore new perspective. Explore, also letting me just being, right? As you thought, as we are so lost in our thoughts, we need to achieve and we need to do and we need here, we need there. What really also we do is we put our happiness and our sense of fulfillment far away from us.
Yeah.
Right? Because we create this idea that once I'm going to achieve 1, 2, 3, once I'm going to be able to get this thing done, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to feel a certain way and this is what's going to happen. Now, we all know this is not how it works, right? The moment that you step out of your stream of thought, this is immediately you feel that sense. Like, okay, I didn't need to work for it. I did exactly the opposite. and I came back to my own, right? So the recognition of that gave a lot more freedom and creativity and work from a certain flow. Now, when I explain that to people, they ask me, okay, so you're much less active? And I'm saying, I think that I'm a much more active.
Yeah.
But in a different way. It's not the same active of I'm busy. It's active through presence, and you like when you don't have this noise in your head, keep, I don't know what, driving us crazy, and you have more quiet inside, it's a lot easier to get things done. Right? Because we don't have the noise of what they're going to think and who created and who gets the credit and what's going on and where it's going to take me and I'm right and what they're going to think and da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? The craziness. You work in a quieter place. It's a lot easier.
And it always reminds me, especially working with clients and team members and having, people reach out, especially if they're a bit more junior and everything is this happened in a meeting and this person did this and like, this is the title and I should be getting credit for that work. And I always try not to like giggle and smile as you just kind of like listen and talk through it. And you're like, wow, this is like so much chaos and noise. And really, it's like not even about this thing. And like, how can we peel back? And I'm curious, because I know from my perspective, if I think about 23-year-old Jenna, like building her, leadership career, and I'm very similar. I didn't love school. I don't have some Ivy League background. I just always said yes to everything that scares me. If it was challenging, I went headfirst into it. I was like, I'll figure it out. I'll make it happen. I'm smart enough to know, like, I can ask good questions, and there's somebody who's smarter than me that will help me to understand what I don't know. And so a little bit of like, I guess, chip on the shoulder in that sense of going after it. But there was definitely a really hardcore drive, and I got to prove myself and like creating that worth at a younger age. And as life happens, relationships happen, you get broken up, you get built back up, all the things. And as I started to really prioritize really like personal growth and development and start to integrate a lot of those tools, as you mentioned, like the noise quiets down, you see things clearly. What you really kind of put a lot of value and effort on before completely shifts in terms of where you want to focus your time, what you want to say yes to. And so I'm curious if you kind of looked at your leadership style before and after, what was the biggest shift, or maybe what was the biggest shift that your team experienced from you?
I see people in a very different way. So that's really, because the moment that you recognize like who you really are outside of the noise,
Yeah.
there's no difference between me and you.
No.
It's just different story, right? So I just start seeing people in a different way. My approach to people, helping people, being there for people, really hearing people from a deeper, right? So it's just changed, because before that, I felt like the same way that I saw myself. I'm here to work. I'm here to make money. And this is what's going on. That's what I'm going to do. And I behave the same thing with you. But the moment that I got more insight into myself, I understand from my experience that we are here to evolve, not to achieve. Achievement will come, but we're first here to evolve. So when I work with somebody, it's like, okay, can I somehow, hold a space, listen to him, maybe suggest something, maybe create a certain space to help him evolve, right? So my interaction with my team and one-on-one and other people that I work with, that's really what I have in the back of my mind, is the evolution part, right? Because so that's really the biggest shift. So, the language, the listening, the support, and I also, you recognize that people are so much more than who they're playing themselves to be.
Yeah.
Right? So I know you have a lot more in you. Yeah, I know that you bought into the story of limitation. I get it.
Yeah.
But I also, so when you speak to people that way, if it's my kids, friends, people that I work with, like there is a deeper knowing of like, okay, I know that right now I'm talking to a beautiful being that play and talk to me from a place of limitation. Okay, let's crack through it a little bit, right? So there's that part. And then at the same time, there's accountability and system and things, and we need to get done. There's a business today that support more than 1,000 people, right? So, and also for me, I don't see it that accountability in business doesn't go with holding a space and helping people evolve. I think it's perfectly aligned, right? Because when you hold somebody accountable, you actually, in a way, helping him to evolve, right? Before that, I had, when I start going into accountability and holding people, I like, is this a micromanagement? Is that too tough? Do I need, right? So some people have this uncomfortable feeling with accountability. Sometimes when you meet with somebody at the end of the month and like, listen, you were supposed to do 1, 2, 3, 4, it's done or not done. There's a lot of people that it's very uncomfortable conversation.
You do not want to be held to task of like, you didn't do it. So what do
Yeah.
you want to do about it? Like,
Exactly. So I'm explaining the team that you actually serving each other. You're helping each other when you help hold each other accountable,
yeah.
right? Because there is another, I mean, that's something that was very strong in my experience when I went from a place like why things are happening to me and why this thing is not working and why this happened to me in my childhood or whatever it is, went from, wait a second, this is all actually happening for me because it's helping me see and experience things that I need to release and break through. So when people going through a hard time, and I know that it's hard to explain it to people when they're going through a hard time, but it's happening for you. Yeah, just learn how to look at it from a certain way. One of the way that when I sometimes work as part with a group, I'm working people, just say thank you. Shit happened. Thank you. Automatically, you change your perspective against what's happening to you.
Or I like to go is like, what is this teaching me right now? What do I need to learn that I don't know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because once we release it, then the growth comes.
Yeah.
Right? That's where you see suddenly people going from, I saw it so many times at this point, people trying to break through 50,000 or 100,000 or 150 and trying the same thing with my story. And then they're releasing and they have more awareness. A few things shift and they jump to $1 million. Not because you worked harder, right? It's because you learn how to adopt different perspective, how to have more playfulness, how to release this thing so when you go back is, all of us have it, is bad things that happened to us in the past. Many, many people, when you talk to them about, will say, that's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Totally.
Right? My hope is people see it when it happens and not 10 years after.
For sure. Well, and I think it's too sometimes a little bit age dependent or like, I think now because spirituality and personal development has come, I'll call it quote unquote more mainstream than it used to be. I feel like there's a more openness to hear that or take on those tools, but it's always the moments where I say like the moments where it's like sticky and tough and like you want to give up because you're like, this is too hard.
Yeah.
Is like the exact moment where like everything could completely change in better ways than you ever imagined if you just kind of like lean into the discomfort, hang out there, get used to that like feeling in your body and like, okay, yeah, we're here. Like, what do I want to do about it? And I think one thing you brought up, which from my experience is really tough for founders and CEOs, is presence. Like actual true presence in a meeting, not getting distracted or like, I know I have to do this meeting, so I'm going to listen to this person, even though I'm not really listening because I'm already thinking about what I want to do or I'm not interested in what they're saying. And they miss all these subtle nuances. And that's why I always like to say I do fractional support with a people-focused lens because people are messy. They're going to be the hardest part of your business. It's easy to make a decision on that software or this software, like, very transactional things, but the magic is with the humans that you bring on board. And so if you're so focused on what you have going on for you, you're missing of like is that team actually not working together?
Yeah.
Are they needing more vision? But to have, whether that's even just that 15 minutes of where somebody's truly present with you to hear you, is like you catching that little thing that could monumentally shift your business.
I think this is moments of wealth. We
Yeah.
need to really be present with people and really paying attention to all the small things that you mentioned. That's moments of wealth,
Yeah.
right? That's exactly the moment of getting out from the stream of thoughts and think that you see everything in a certain way and being more present. And then you're like, okay, now I see what's going on.
Yeah. And usually it's like the junior person who that founder doesn't really want to spend any time with, who has like an idea of like solving a problem and who's too scared to put their hand up in a meeting because the space isn't safe, and then create a really great source of collaboration where that team can help shift it. And I think, yeah, so often those things are missed, or they're like, no, I'm the smartest person in the room. Like, I know exactly what needs to be done. And sure, maybe a lot of the time that is the case, but there's a big window there of missed opportunity if you just don't take a step back and actually be present and listen and then take action.
To add to what you said, really listening to somebody is one of the biggest gifts that you can give people. It's really listening to them, right? It's amazing. I mean, you can hear it all day long. I mean, if you just listen to me, right? Husband, wife, kids, whoever, job, like it's us as people. Can you just listen to me? So the moment that you really being present with somebody, the gift that you give them, right? And that create now the openness to bring crazy ideas, unique ideas, people asking questions instead of being ashamed that they don't know, right? I just been in a meeting 2 days ago. We're going through something, and I'm there with my team, and they're explaining us the product. I don't understand what we're supposed to do, and I'm stopping it, and I'm asking my team, "Do you guys understand what he explained? Like, are you guys going to be able to explain to me after?" It's like, and it's quiet. I'm like, okay, seriously, ask questions. Don't worry. Yeah, and then all the questions start coming up. So there is a lot of it that if you create a certain space, a lot of magic will happen, right? You can move forward as a team much, much faster, right? So because people don't feel like they need to hold because they're going to be judged and what they're going to say and he's not really hearing me and on and on.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And so how do you now, kind of coming from this place of growth, and then also, I'll call it, like, sometimes can be a competing priority of building a business and staying on kind of that plan. How do you kind of balance between sort of like the drive, but then also the surrender into like...
That's, you know what, I just before I joined, a good friend sent me that question because he's very much in his journey of really understanding who he is and all that, and he understands surrender. And then he's saying, I'm having some financial difficulties and I understand surrenders, but I also need to go and make money. So how this thing works together? Because it can be very confusing. So as much as you're more present, the question of deciding falls away. Because you are with what is in front of you and you are fully with it, right? So it's not, and I'm trying to make my answer a little bit more practical than just like a high-level description, yeah. But it's with whatever, just do your best with whatever is in front of you.
Yeah.
If you have a meeting right now, you can be... So spiritual for me is not sitting on a cloud.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. Spiritual for me is to recognize what reality is made of, right? Understanding the people in front of you, understanding who you are, understanding what is in play. Instead of just seeing one very limited perspective, you're seeing more.
Yeah.
That for me, what spirituality stands for. Doesn't have to be that I'm sitting in meditation all day long. No, I can be right now, I'm present, I'm talking to you, and the only thing on my mind is just me and you having a conversation. I'm fully here with you. Now bring that into everything that you do. Without thinking, Because it's our mind that create this idea. Wait a second, now I'm business, now I'm spirituality, now I'm this. No, you are right here, right now. Do the best in whatever is in front of you.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the same thing that people ask me, like balancing between work and family and this or that. I'm like, okay, forget balance. What is it that you're trying to balance?
Yeah.
Because it's ideas that we create, things that we heard in the past, and now we're trying to bring them to our life. It's a lot of it is the 70,000 thoughts that we have every day.
For sure.
If you're fully with what is in front of you, without attachment, you are spiritual as you want, you are a businessman as you want, you are all of it at the same time, right? So that's my approach to it. So my answer to my friend that he tried to figure out on his own, I told him, leave this separation, because you are trying to integrate, and you have two confusing ideas. Whatever feels right to you, just go 100% and be fully with it.
Yeah.
Right? Is the same thing when we flew from Israel, right? When we started the podcast, we flew from Israel to here. We sit in a restaurant. We just went through it. And yes, okay, so then the two girls that was there in the restaurant, and that happened, we were fully with it, and we got to, right? There's a lot of things that just will happen and are happening based on our frequency, based on our openness, based on how much we are open to see it, but just be fully with it, right? I can easily sit in a restaurant, right, with the two Israeli girls that the opportunity came, and says, my mind will come in and says, no, we have to be in San Fernando Valley. This have to happen. So when you keep saying this have to happen and this have to happen, it usually comes in with this mess of thoughts that we have, and we're missing, and we keep missing the opportunity in front of us.
And it kind of ties into sort of something I had to really work on as I worked with a coach to really help understand what my core beingness is and what goes on in my body when I'm operating from that place, and then what changes in my body when my survival mechanisms kick in, and where it's benefited me greatly from a business perspective and personally, and where it's hindered me in both those ways when that happens. And it took me a lot longer, and because I'm impatient, so I'm like, okay, let's figure this out, because I want to problem solve it and move on, and like that tenacity to do it, to like really actually take time and like tune in to what was changing and like how to soften in those moments. And I think especially when you're trying to, in a time of turmoil, or you're an entrepreneur and you're, for me, it's like, okay, I have a gap in clients right now, and you start to kind of feel the stress in your body, like, okay, well, what if, and then you start to go like, what if it all blows up? What if I have no money? I got to pay those bills. And then it is like bringing yourself back into that calm state of like, okay, well, what's really going on? If, that person who didn't work out, is that really what I wanted to be doing anyways? And would I be operating from a place that I like can be in my beingness from that? And it's always no. And so as soon as you shift and kind of, again, as you mentioned, like let go, and then it's like, instantly you'll get like that email or like that message of like, hey, we have this project going on, we want you to do this. You're like, of course, like, and it works. But it's, it is, surrender is a constant practice, because it's so easy to jump back in and kind of go into control mode.
Yeah. So I'm curious, once you learn how to be more in your body, more in tune to who you are, what did you find?
Everything was just so much easier. And it kind of going back to frequencies, I had to become pretty protective of who had access to me and who didn't. So there was more boundaries in place of things that I was letting in my life that didn't need to be there anymore, for sure. But the way in which I flowed was so much easier, and nothing was really stressful or getting like my back up and, having to feel like I've made an active choice to not use the word busy, especially in Vancouver. You'll ask somebody like, how are you? Oh, I'm so busy, so busy. And it's like this badge of honor that everybody wears, that they're like busy. And I'm like, I can't stand this word. I'm like, are you being like tied to a chair and have a gun to your head? And that's like, you have no choice in what's going on in your life. And like, that's all you can say is I'm overwhelmed, I'm busy. Like, just life is nonstop. Versus if somebody asks me, it's like, you know what, I'll make it specific, or like, you know what, this week has been really full, but like it's been full of all these things that are like super exciting and light me up, but I'm working on these cool projects. And so for me, you know, you get like, oh, well, you don't have a lot of balance in your life. I'm like, well, what do you mean balance? Like, for you or for me? Because like if I'm loving what I'm doing, there is no balance.
Yeah, there's yeah. Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad because I have to work later one night, or I'm not stressed. Like I'm just having fun, and I genuinely love who I get to work with and what I get to do. So there's not this equation of I have to do this and I have no other choice. It's my choice. So how can I be mad at that? So just like softer. Everything became softer and lighter.
Did you find that you're working more with your natural gifts, innate abilities, compared to trying to get better in things that are not so much in your alignment?
Yeah, for sure. I think as a female too, and I generally work with a lot of males, so there's a tendency to be a bit more in a masculine energy and driver. And for sure, sometimes it, you know, assertive energy is required and you got to rein people in and get things done. But I think showing up genuinely, like, and embodying fully who I am, that happens now all the time. And one of my clients says, like, Jenna, you just have this like sparkle about you that I really like. And I started laughing. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And like a couple of people, as I really start to make those shifts, like there's just a different glow about you. You just seem like a lot more like sure about yourself, and like softer in what you do. It's still the same you, but like a different iteration of you that's like really nice to be around. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like, that's really cool. So it's like subtle shifts that people who know you really well will see. And then new people experience that version of you and are very naturally drawn to it.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So the reason I asked this question is, first of all, I want to know your experience.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious. And it's really shifting from first being, right, to then doing that is aligned with your being, and the having fall into place, right? If most of people today are doing exactly the opposite, they're thinking, what is it that I want to have? And then, okay, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to have it. And then one day, I'm going to go into my being. Hopefully, I'm going to find my joy and happiness and everything else, right? And what you describe is exactly the opposite of, right? You learning to be with yourself. Okay, there's this part of me. I'm learning my experience and different feeling and different energies. I'm gonna give it more space. I'm gonna give it more life in me, right? And then you're doing change, fall into a certain flow, and then people saying, oh, wait a second, there's a spark in you, right? People want a piece of what you're holding, because now you're representing something that innately we all want.
100%. And that's where I had to come like very aware of who kind of wants to take it from you versus like add in. And so I always go with anything that I do, it's either a full body yes or it's a full body no.
Okay.
And like that's how I know. And I think sometimes before it, I would go logic would make it the decision versus like, well, that's just a smart decision to make. And sure, that comes up, but there's also when you get that pit in your stomach at the same time, you're like, but I don't really want to. And so I've made the choice to walk away from things because I know what it would mean and I wouldn't be happy doing. I'm like, I'm not going to be operating from a place of like love and joy. If I take that, I'll do it and I'll be able to do it, but I'll not be happy. And then I'm going to be back in that tornado again. And I don't want to do it. So like, I would rather pick up a second job if I had to.
Yeah.
And take that and not have to do that again.
Nice.
Yeah.
So learning to honor, right? That feelings in us, that intuition, whatever you want to call it, right? And as much as we honor it more and more, it just becomes stronger and stronger.
Yeah. There's less kind of noise like around that. You're just like so clear where you just keep moving and you're just like, yeah, like it's gone. I can't think about it. That happened yesterday. Like, that's great. We're like, what's here, what's right now, as you mentioned, like that presence and not the story of yesterday or like so worried about what's ahead of you. It's like, I've got like this moment right here. So let's move within that, reality to make things happen. And I'm so curious for you kind of through your journey and things that have changed, either like business through personal, like what's the thing you're most proud of that's changed for you?
I think I'm able to be much more. How do I explain it? I think the level of space or love that I can bring into, my family and my friends and people around me and being more available. That's something that I see that give people the opportunity to really have more of a reflection. There's more depth into it, into everything that we do. And it really goes into everything, right? So there's all the work, right, that we're putting and recognizing the thing in ourselves and on, and we grow and we feel everything that we feel. That's great. That's okay. I have this good experience and I see the world and experience the world. But what the space that we're now able to hold for other people and bring this new perspective, not push it on other people, but having it available for people that go and say the same thing as, wow, I see this spark in you. Can you tell me more? What happened? And then you are a person that can bring this new perspective in and you hold a certain space. Yeah, like I'll see, like people will sit and talk to me about things and they will tell me after, you know what, I never shared it with anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, okay, thank you, right? That I did it to sit here with you. And then a month after, I'll get a phone call that says, you know what? You told me these two things about grounding and maybe looking at my thought from outside and not getting lost in them. And I have to tell you, my relationship changed. I have to tell you, I was able to change this or that. So just having the ability to hold that space for people, it's something that I'm very grateful that I'm able to have and hold. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. The company and everything else, I mean, it's great. And listen, life is beautiful, right? I'm all about make a lot of money, build great things, all about it. But for me, it's a result of something.
So then that leads kind of the connecting question is, how do you define impact for yourself then?
Impact is exactly that space that, look, I people that work for, with us for the company for 14 years, 10 years, 7 years. And, they came in a certain position and I saw them growing and developing and now, be able to offer a lot more. They're living life in a new level, in a new way. And it's not only what they bring to the companies, their kids, right? What they bring home, what they bring to their families. Because my biggest thing is the evolution part, right? And when I see it as a collective, when you hear all this limitation or, we look at other humans as you need to produce something to be worth anything, right? Once you recognize this thing and you hear people speaking about it, it's like, oh, okay, I understand why, I respect it. At the same time, it's time to start shifting the way we look at other people, right? So this is something that is very big for me. I see all the business journey and everything, and I'm of course still building and everything else. It's really for me as a space for my own evolution, right? So that's really what I see as the biggest impact. Is one of the reasons that I'm coming on a podcast is a lot of things that I'm sharing a little bit outside of the podcast is you are not who you think you are. Who you think you are is a very limited perspective of who you are. And this is where I bring up the idea of recognize that you have 70,000 thoughts every day. And all this idea of separation, that this is who you are and this is who I am, and you're a different country or different color or different this or different that, is like we're just buying into these old stories, right? So that's what I feel is the biggest impact. And then through business and everything else that we do, yeah.
And that would be the takeaway. You're not who you think you are. I love it. But so to kind of wrap things up, I wanted to do sort of kind of 5 final questions to kind of chat through. So I would love to know a lesson that you learned the hard way that you wouldn't trade for anything.
So growing up to the age of 30 something, I used to stutter. And so I was very quiet. And I for many, many years, I felt like I'm being cursed.
Mm.
Painful. For people out there that stuttered, it sucks because you can sit with people, you don't know where your next word is going to get stuck or not. Sometimes you want to say something, you're not saying it. At one moment, I understand that it's happening for me. So there was a lot of pain. And then the shift, right? For many, many years, I was seriously like, why? And then there was a moment of, wow, okay, here is all the gifts that I got from it. Here is what is pointing to myself in me. And that moment changed. Now, it took many, many years to get to that moment, but the freedom on the other side of that moment is, yeah.
Wow, I love that. And
Yeah.
what kind of dovetails off that? So, you talk about the struggle. So when everything feels like it's just falling apart or you're going through the time, what is the thing that sort of anchors you back?
I know it's happening for me. I'm not saying it in theory or anything.
Yeah.
I know it's happening for me. So my level of certainty and even if I catch myself go down into holy shit, why it's happening, I'm not giving myself a hard time. Just, okay, woof, I just got lost in the story. Just step out of it. But yeah, so it's, okay, I've been doing it for a long time now, right? So it took a long time to build it.
Yeah, it's like a muscle. You have to train it. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not, it's put some work, but the level of certainty, it's just always like, I know it's happening for me. I know there is a bigger reason. I know my learning because I've been through it so many times. So yeah, even if something goes bad and it's like right now, let's say I'm sitting here. I told you in the beginning before we start, I have pain here and that's happened. So I'm looking at this stuff of like, okay, it didn't just happen just because. There's a certain lesson here. So when you approach it from that perspective, you don't go through this victim and low energy.
What does true leadership mean to you today?
Serving.
Mm.
Serving by really, we have many people now in the company. I seriously feel like I work for them. I moved to the founder position 3-4 years ago. Again, going back to strengths and weaknesses, I feel like at this point, I am not the right CEO to keep taking the company forward.
Yep.
But as the founder now, I have more freedom and time to really jump in and work with different departments, right? And my goal is like, okay, how can I help? Like,
yeah.
What is it that we need to achieve? Where is you see the obstacles? Where is it that you feel like you get stuck? It can be energy, it can be mindset, it can be not seeing things. But really, it's like, I want everybody to be successful.
Yeah.
Right? So that's really how I see it.
Love it. And last question, in your own words, define what Built for This means to you.
I think a lot of it is what we talked about. Really, it's when you build for it. First of all, I believe everybody built for it. For whatever it is that you want to do, you built for it. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to do it when you come from a clean place. Now, build for it really is recognize that you already have all the tools within you to make it happen, right? So that's when you recognize that you have everything already within you, is not so much that I need to fix myself. It's more of I need to let go of the limitation so all my gifts will come into the front. That's what I meant. That for me, when I heard the name, that's what it meant.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today and being so open and honest with everything that you've gone through in your journey. That's great. Many pieces I know resonated with me personally, and I'm sure will connect in with a lot of other people as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. This was fun.
Good. I'm glad.